Hi, friend. Niclas here. Welcome to another episode of the Your Audio Solutions podcast, where it's my job to find the tools and methods from the people that inspire you so you can apply their knowledge to your own life and work. On the show today, we have the brilliant singer-songwriter Anders Osborne, and he has released 15 studio albums since his debut record, Doin Fine, which he released in 1989. And if you're into great songwriting, blues, rock, and jazz, you definitely love Anders' music. And if you're already a fan, I'm sure you love it already. But if not, definitely check his music out. And I can definitely recommend his record, Which Way to Hear, which me and my girlfriend have had on repeat for the last week or so. It's a great record with some awesome songs. I'll leave a link to it in the description below. So definitely check that album out. It's great. It was a big pleasure talking to Anders and delve deeper into his songwriting process, making albums, being confident with leaving mistakes in, meditation, running, and much, much more. And if you're a songwriter yourself, I'm sure you love this interview because there's a lot of great tips from Anders, how he does it, that I'm sure you can apply to your own songwriting process. Now, if you want exclusive access to interviews like these before the public and a chance to ask questions to up and coming guests, please join the Audio Tribe. There's a link to it in the description below. Just enter your name and email address, and you have joined the Audio Tribe email list. It's completely free and super easy to join, and I'd love to see you there. Also, if you're watching this interview on YouTube or you're listening to it on Apple Podcast or Spotify, please subscribe, leave a comment, and leave a rating if it's on Apple Podcast or Spotify. It really helps grow the channel so we can have more guests coming on and just make more awesome content for you, the watcher or listener. But that's it. Let's get into the interview with Anders Osborne. So how's the lockdown been for you? Has it been busy songwriting or just trying to get by like most of us?
Yeah, I mean, the initial shock, and financial hit was kind of a little bad back in early March. But after a few weeks, I tapped into the live stream and I was, just asking my fans to pitch in, and they've been very helpful. I paint and sell art, and then I do private shows over Zoom and shit like that.
Nice.
Yeah, you just find ways to kind of scrape by and.
Yeah. I mean, me and my girlfriend spent the weekend listening to your album, Which Way to Hear, and
Oh wow.
that's an awesome record, man. I really, really like it. Especially I mean, there's so many good songs, but I think my favorite at the moment is Brother Brother.
Oh yeah,
It's awesome.
that's a deep cut.
Is it? I thought it was one of the most popular ones, maybe.
Maybe I don't know. It's been a minute, but thank you very much.
You're welcome,
Thank.
man. I mean, you've released so many albums. What is it, like 15? I just counted today.
I think so.
How
Yeah.
have you, what's your productivity like to do all those albums? I mean, it's in a short space of time as well, like most bands.
Um, I like writing. I think writing was my first passion, and it was my passion before I knew it was something that I did, if that makes any sense. I think I just wrote poetry and melodies when I was very young. And so I think it doesn't feel like an effort. And then when it comes to making the record itself, that goes back and forth. Sometimes it's labels that want you to do it, or it's a career move. You need to put something out. Sometimes, it's one thing or another. The last 5 or 6 years, it's actually more of almost an obsession. Maybe the last 7 or 8 years, where I feel like the only thing that matters is to document the things that you write. And if you do it, and I still feel that if you do it for the sake of trying to make a masterpiece and not for a career move, I think the process is more enjoyable and it's easier to move on and start the next one. So I think that keeps the pace up, because you fail with the masterpiece every time. So you go, that wasn't a masterpiece. Let me do it again.
Yeah.
But you set out to make something that is, extraordinary every time.
I mean, does that also the goal move every time too? Like what you felt was a masterpiece 10 years ago is different today, I guess.
As far as my own records or other records?
Yeah, like your own, where you know, what your achievement of a masterpiece is, or what your view of a masterpiece is, I guess.
No, I think the masterpiece perception I think it has remained, and it's a new experience to seek masterpiece. That's probably only 10 plus years old. I never thought of it much before that. But when I think of a masterpiece, I think of something where if I sing the song as the composer, it still resonates in my chest and my heart. I still feel the same emotions. It's not difficult to accomplish. If the tracks on the record, if they produce that feeling in me when I listen back, then I think it's a masterpiece. Now, obviously, if you're not extremely powerful within your own arena, meaning you don't feel like you have a handle on what it is you're doing, you can't make a masterpiece, because to do that, you must be a master of what you do. So I think what goes hand in hand with the term masterpiece is, I think it is that you work on yourself also and your craft, and not so much your technique, but your mastery of evoking emotions through music. And I think, yeah, so what happens is the more you leave the environment of success according to some sort of business, I think you get closer to a masterpiece. You are just really devoting your time and your love to the gods of music, and you try to just honor that, and you stay focused on it. And it doesn't matter if it's not technically advanced or if it sounds amazing or none of those things, but if it evokes a mastery of emotions, I think it's a masterpiece.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it makes total sense. You touched upon a lot of things that I wanted to bring up actually, which is great. But you know, I've heard you speak about this in other interviews, and that's, you know, the process or the skill, I guess you can call it, of being able to, you know, express what's inside rather than trying to compare yourself to others. Or like, this guy does this, I want to do the same, etc., etc. So how do you approach that today? Because I mean, I might be wrong, but I guess when you start out, there is a lot of things you try to do what others have done, right? And then you slowly become better and better. Yeah, so I'd love to hear your process in this aspect of your songwriting.
Okay.
If it makes sense what I asked.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I think, you know, the initial process of composing a melody or something we had a pump organ when I was a child, and that was the first melody I came up with that produced emotions in me. And I got hooked. After that, I went, oh my God, I think could be my language. It feels like I know how to speak this, whatever this is. I was 8 or something like that. And so that's now a pure emotion. That is from within me, or my connection to the universe or God or anything larger than me is being channeled in some ways. I'm moving energies and notes and vibrations, and it makes me feel something. I start to resonate. Then you enter the phase where other people have done the same thing, and they've done a really good job, and it resonates in you. So now you start to emulate that, and you go, I want to do, oh my God, that felt amazing. Kind of Blue with Miles Davis, or this or that, or whatever you're into. and you start to want to be something like that because it made you feel in a certain way. I think what happens gradually, if you stay focused on the actual language of music, is that in order to truly understand for me, if I want to understand what I am all about, which is why I do music, I need to understand who I am. So I do something musically, it comes back to me, and I feel like I'm beautiful. I am powerful. I am sad. I am certain emotions and feelings and, uh, movements. Something happens. So it feels like you're observing yourself in a reflection, back and forth. In order to do that genuinely, you can't speak another person's vocabulary. You can't copy what they say. It's like quoting books your whole life. Eventually, you realize that you don't have an opinion. You're just quoting other people's conclusions. So you have to start, if you want to be a philosopher, you have to start to actually push the boundary past a point where it's been pushed before and make new area of land for other people to experience. Now that is you. So now this sounds very high, lofty, like, but it really isn't. Most people do this, whether they're known or not. They are trying in each improvised solo section, they're trying to find something that's them. For my writing, I started by examining how I spoke. So I would say certain things, tape it, or write certain things. Like, how would I say I've really missed, let's say my wife. I'm speaking to my wife. How would I say I've really, really missed you? The whole weekend felt X, Y, Z, blah, blah, blah. I was lonely. I was this, or I loved it. It was great the first day. How would I say that? What words would I use? And then once I looked at that, I figured, okay, so these are my choice of words when I speak. Should that maybe be how I sing? Should I use the same language? So I tried that, and something opened up. I started to realize this is my rhythm. This is where I stop and pause. This is where I emphasize. This is my favorite word, and so forth. And I started to then identify what my voice was. This is who I've chosen. So now I'm 54. I have half a century of using words. I have selected my words for a long time. And they change. They always change. So instead of writing a song, putting on the hat as a songwriter and saying, now I'm writing a song, and start looking for rhymes, I would first go to what is it that I say when I just speak. And I think that answered your question. I'm
Yeah,
not
definitely. That's
okay.
that's a super. I never heard that exercise before, so to speak, or that way of going about it. Did you say you started that 10 years ago ish then?
10, 15 years ago, I started to try to discover what my actual voice is. And it came from having to be a staff writer for publishing companies
Right.
that write commercial music. I did that for 14 years. And in the end, I was not very happy, and I couldn't figure out what was wrong. And I realized I wasn't using my own voice.
Right.
I was directing a craftsmanship and some musical talent towards other people's needs. And I realized, so I'm not really expressing myself genuinely.
Right.
And so that's when I started the quest to find out, well, what is my actual voice? What do I sound like?
Did you ever feel, maybe not fearful, maybe that's the wrong word, but yeah, were you scared maybe to show people your true self like you never done before?
Yeah, I mean, my insecurities, that I battled today and in the past are obviously linked to the art. it is approval. I want to be liked. I'm a people pleaser. I want people to understand me correctly. Not, I don't want them to misunderstand me. And that can become a problem because people will misunderstand you, and you have to accept that. You can't control all that. So that means my fear often was not to maybe expose myself, but it was to not be liked in some ways. Uh, as an addict too, a recovered alcoholic and addict, there's a lot of insecurity based on feeling like a fraud, that you're not genuine, because you spend a lot of years in alcoholism just creating a delusional type of life. So I had fears of that maybe I'm full of shit. But I think all those things were, with the right amount of self-inquiry, therapy, and reading literatures and meditation and eating right and all these things that come into play to take care of it, all the three components of mind, body, and soul. I think you get past that and you just get really concerned about being precise. You have to be precise so that you understand that each word will make an impact. Each word, each phrase will have a ripple. So you should mean it. It should be.
That's super fascinating, to be honest, and very valuable to hear as well. That's how you go about it. I think that can be inspirational to a lot of people. There's something where you said something about melody, and I know from other interviews I've heard with you is like the importance of melody. I think a lot of people can relate to that. That melody is maybe what we listen to, or most of the casual listeners listen to. But what's your approach to finding the right melody and like you said, unlocking your emotions?
I think probably to pick up the instrument often, like all through the day. Try different times of the day in different rooms. If guitar is your instrument, it's easy to move around. You can try outside, inside. I think capo, so like things like the key, but also the position of the key. So if a G up here has one feel and has one tempo. Same thing if I really high up, maybe. Well, so now that's good ways to stimulate different parts of tempo, rhythm, and then so what I do is I play around with chords, capos, and settings, time of the day. All these things matter. Whether I have to whisper sing it or sing it out loud, be in the kitchen when everybody's there, or isolate. They're all different feels. And then I try things. I just sing nonsense words and I mess around. And what I also try is if I'm stuck somewhere in the middle of something and it's not working and I'm pounding it and I'm trying to think, I go, fuck that. And then I just go. I change completely. Just to kind of throw myself for a 180. And usually that's when something really like, and it'll just come out of nowhere because I'm almost tricking myself to be free. So I use a lot of tricks like that.
Right. But like you mentioned it now, but if you do have, let's say, half a song and the intro is awesome, verse awesome, but you can't just, think about what should come next. What's your approach to solving that problem?
I would use a capo immediately, right. And I would move where I sing it, up, low, high. Should it be at the cusp? And then you get kind of a feel. Then I use voice memo, and then I record it, and then I can listen back, and I can go. And then usually as a listener, I know what it needs. And then something comes out. the one thing that rather than pounding something over and over, let me rephrase it. I will force stuff on purpose sometimes just to see, okay, because I know that at the right moment I'm going to make a complete switch of approach, and usually something comes out. If it really doesn't work, I walk away. I I have guitars spread out in different places, and I also try to work on as many songs as possible at the same time. So I will have maybe 11 unfinished laying around. And then sometimes, if I'm really in a space of writing, I will put them out so that I see them everywhere. So the sheets are everywhere. Like they're happening all the time. When I go running, I listen to the 50-second snippet over and over, and I don't re-record it once it gets more fleshed out. I go back to the original idea over and over while I write the whole lyrics like progression, because that way I don't lose the small nuances of the melody.
Right. That's some good tips, actually.
Right on. Right on.
But how, when you are in that space, you know, we just said the mind space of writing, creativity, everything's happening. How do you take advantage of that? Like, or how do you let it not slip, I should say?
Well, I don't feel much pressure to not slip. I'm okay with it slipping away. But if I really feel like I need to hold on to something, I usually create a fake or a made up record. Even if there is no record deadline, I create maybe the cover art. So I go on my camera, take a picture, and I make a fake album cover, title, and then I start to put together, this is the record that's made by this sailor, and he is down in this harbor, and it's going to be called this and that, and the songs. And now I have a whole theme that I feel like I'm living out the whole fantasy. And then the juices tend to stay a little longer if I do that.
So that's cool, man. So actually, the creating a sort of an urgency or deadline helps.
Yes.
Right. Has it always been like that, or was there a period where deadlines freaked you out? And
No, they don't freak me out, but I think the purpose of the song is supposed to be part of a collection. That's been with me for a long time. I am not crazy about writing just individual songs. I'm personally am a big fan of groupings, like siblings or this package of songs. They belong together because then they all tend to hold hands, and there's a nice familiarity in all of them. And then I can move on. But each individual song, it feels too fragmented for me.
right, right. Yeah, I mean, also being a listener, I enjoy listening to a full album rather than just a
Yeah,
few
same here.
songs here and there, you know?
Same here. I think that's where it comes from, probably.
Yeah, maybe. But what does it take to put together a great album from start to finish? Is there a sort of a formula or just per album basis?
You mean like from me spiritually, from me where I come from? Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I usually find the landscape. So let's say the last record I released called Buddha and the Blues, and the idea of it was that it was made in Southern California. The coast was there. I would use cats, like musicians that were part of the early 70s, mid 70s, soft rock Southern California scene. It would have a very pleasant, soothing aspect to itself. But I think the landscape, I needed to record it out there. So those were things that I looked at. And then you look at, okay, who's the engineer for that? Who's going to make those sounds right? Who's going to help me produce it? and then so you put together a little bit of a shadow cast, and then once you get the producer, you discuss all these ideas, and then he or she will like go, you know who would be great for this on bass? You know what? And then you start to mold it together. And then sometimes it goes in a different direction once you start cutting it. But that's usually where I start. It's a scene. It's a time of the year is important too. Is it summer? Is it sunny? Is it hot, cold? All these things. I try to shape the entire experience. Are we going to have someone cook, or do we want to cook? Do we take breaks? And I don't like long days in the studio. I'm more of a
Right.
6, 7, 8 hour day kind of like, okay, that's it, I'm done.
Mm.
Then I want to have good conversation. So who do we? So there's a lot of things like that that you put together and you make it right.
And so, if I understand you correctly, you have a lot of stuff planned out even before the album is done. Then, so you have, like you said before, like an album cover, maybe, like you've already just said, with the studio planned out, the songs, musicians. That's that's a very organized way, but very good way to go about record making. Because I'm the same way. I like having it organized. I think it creates a better record, definitely.
I think there's there's a way of setting up a certain environment that's conducive to what you imagine the record should be. Once you get there, you can't fight what happens. That's very important for me. I've learned over the years, if I force my will on everything as we go, it won't be good. So if that all of a sudden it turns out to not be so mellow, or the other way around, I had one record I thought was going to be rocking, and it turned out to be, wow, this is mellow. And then you just kind of like, well, there it is. And then some of the reviews come back and go, I don't know what the fuck happened to these guys. It was so mellow. And go, yep. And it's just, but you have to absorb it and go, exactly. It's really fucking mellow. It's weird, right? And you just, that's what it is. But that's the one thing that I don't like to plan is the actual end result. But I like to be able to do the setup, the design of the environment. That's kind of half the fun to me.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when you go into the studio, how well do you know the songs then? And how well do the session players know the songs?
Very little.
Okay.
I want that to be, most of the time, very, very virgin takes. Now, the producer and I have usually spent a year, 8 months, shuffling songs. Every once in a while, there's a little exchange of songs, but most of the time, if you have someone that doesn't understand how to bring certain things to life, I mean, if it feels like they don't know how to come up with a part, or they can't find their place in a song, most of the time they're the wrong guy for the session. So you have to find someone else, right? So you can't force things, but that's why you do the planning, to make sure this guy plays really atmospheric stuff. This is going to be good for these songs, blah, blah, blah. This keyboard guy never uses any like old instruments, all super modern. Well, we know what that's going to be like. So we expect certain things from each guy when they start.
Right.
If you start to press things that doesn't work, then you've chosen the wrong guy. So therefore, I think you do your work leading up to it, and they will make something unbelievable 90% of the time. And every once in a while it doesn't work, so you skip the song, you go to the next one.
Yeah. That's always a good trick. But how, or actually, when before you go to the studio, do you ever try out the musicians beforehand, like with just the like maybe you send them a recording for them to record something over and send to you? Is that ever a part
I've
of?
never done that one. No, I've never done that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Not even in these days when it's so easy to do it at home and just send files.
No, I haven't. I think part of it is just like I haven't caught up with some of the technology, so I'm kind of just steeped in some different traditions, which is that it's sort of like going to camp with a bunch of grown men and women. You're like, yay!
Mm-hmm.
And when I was still drinking, like you selected your wine and the food, like it was a whole thing. You got together. Now it's like, okay, we're gonna run here and we're gonna come back here. That's a 2.5 mile run in the morning. It's gonna be great, you know. So I'm more excited about the camping aspect of being together.
Definitely.
Um, yeah, it's kind of cool. But I do think that sometimes, you have things where it didn't quite work. I mean, most records, not every, but there are things you got to go and repair and fix, and it's just not working. So you bring it to my home studio with my little Apollo Twin, and you cut a few new things on it, and you try to add some dimensions and whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
Um,
just
but you spoke about I think I dropped my thought, but what was it? I think it was like meditation and stuff. How has that impacted your, I mean, your life, I guess, a lot, but also, how you go into the studio, like you said. That was actually my question. Uh, like you said, you didn't like to spend more than 7, 8 hours or something. And I've been in the studio many, many times because, yeah, I'm an engineer
mm.
by trade. So usually it's we're always 12 hours in the studio.
I know.
And that's something I've been struggling with a lot. And I don't do it anymore if I can.
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
but yeah, what do you find helps you not being there forever? So only be there for 7 hours, for example.
I trust. I learned really. I mean, I really spend time on learning to trust my gut instinct, meaning make decisions quick. You have to be very, very fast. It's when you are, let's say you're not producing it yourself, then you need to understand that the producer, when they say, "Oh, that I fucking love it. That was great," then you will understand that that's his or her job. So you go, "Okay, can you give me one more? I didn't feel the vocals. I felt lost. Let me focus on my vocals. Would do one more take for me? Sure." And then you drop it. You don't grind these things. And that takes practice and experience. You just have to go up. And then when you get to that first place where headphones are getting way too sweaty and you're starting to get to that little space and you're kind of irritable and people are saying things, that's usually around 6 hours every time. So I just know from 35 years of recording that I go, well, that's it. Let's finish this up and we'll come back. We'll listen to some shit before we leave and then come back in the morning. Sounds great. Another thing is to make plans, which is I have dinner. So 8 hours after you start your session, you have a plan. You got to meet somebody. And you go, yeah, I got to go. But you as an engineer, if they've hired you, you set caps. You just say, yep, I'm a 10-hour day, which is the usual. That's the max I'll do. And then the clock starts for anything above that. And you lose 2 guys, you lose 1 band, you lose a couple of people. Well, then you know who they are. They're the people that want more for nothing. So then you don't need to work with those.
Yeah, exactly. Good point.
Maybe,
But
I don't know. We'll see. You call me
yeah.
here. I'm broke. Nothing is working.
um, but also, I mean, you strike me as someone who also is happy to leave in mistakes in your recordings. Um,
Yeah.
not that I can hear all the shitloads of mistakes, nothing like that, but the whole vibe is that, and I
Yeah.
really admire that. Yeah, that skill or that, don't know what the word is I'm looking for, but yeah, you have it. So have you always been like that, or?
No, no, no. When in my teenage years, my first recordings, we had a place in Mid City here where I live still, but It's called Studio in the Closet. It was a tiny little closet area of a music store, and we cut a bunch of records. And oh my God, we'd be there till 4 a.m, me and my friend Louie, and we're just grinding it out. Now I'm gonna make it just right, make it just right. And then I just got schooled by some older experienced guys that said, or I lost my temper trying to do a guitar solo, and I was like, man, and pull me aside and go, listen, you're affecting everybody's mood, and their hearts get all fluttered, and this is not good. You know, you can be angry, but if you start to make a big thing out of you, then there's no room for us. And this was, an experienced guy. And I had the same with these mistakes. When you're trying to perfect it, what you eventually learn is you are not good enough to do what you think you're going to do, which is perfectly fine. So then you have to then focus, what am I good at? Well, I'm good, I've learned, first take, live vocal take. That's what I'm expert at. I can evoke the emotion, so I don't need to do over and over vocal takes. But I should probably give myself a couple of runs from top to bottom so we can do a vocal comp if we need to fix a couple of words or lines. That's a different story. But so that's something I've learned. Guitar solo, I'm good with that. I can overdub it, but it's the same thing there. I can do 3, 4 of them, and then I'm just angry.
Right.
So that takes experience. You just learn that it's just not going to get any better.
Right.
And then what you start to learn is the things that you get attracted to are some of those not perfect things that happen. They start to be like you miss them so much after you cleaned it up. And you can't believe how much you missed that weird sour note. And you're like, that's fucking weird. So you put it back in and go, I love it.
Exactly, man. I mean, I was fortunate enough to make a record earlier this year before the pandemic, and the band was exactly like that. They were like, my sort of engineer brain came in, and I wanted to move something, but they were like, no, keep it as is, and that was really, really valuable. You know, and it goes along with what you're saying. It makes for better music, to be honest.
Yeah, it creates something in your experience that feels more authentic in some ways. I don't know why, but it's like getting flicked in the middle of something good. You get like a yeah, or a friend when you're watching something, they hit you on the shoulder, you go, fuck, did you hear that? Like, yeah. That's what it's like with the mistakes. Like, yeah, fucking right.
Exactly. I mean, because I remember like when I started getting into music, listening to records, it was always like you told your friends, like, have you heard this chair being squeaked, or have you heard the guy spitting? Maybe, I don't know, whatever it can be. And that's missing today, unfortunately.
It's kind of cleaned up today.
yeah. I mean, that would be gone, out of the recording.
Yeah.
And that is a shame.
Yeah. Well, things go in circles. Everything comes back. So.
I mean, I also heard you speak about like greatness versus popularity, and I thought it's fitting to this sort of topic, because most of the songs today, to my taste or to my ears, is more about being popular than creating something great. I mean, I don't know, but maybe in the future, are we going to go back to these songs today and remember them with fondness like we do other songs? That might just be super lame to say, but yeah, I wonder that sometimes. I don't know where you are in this,
Well, I think a lot of things are so subjective, but when it comes to popularity, some of the subjectiveness, the individual experience, has been devaluated for a broader experience, which is the group consciousness now says, I love this song. And then all of a sudden, it's something that you like it in a certain way because everybody likes it. So you feel part of something. And most people don't think this much about it, and they don't have to. It's just an experience. But I think, to go back to what you said first, popularity, when it comes to art, and I know the music industry enough, when they talk about the greatest rock and roll band in the world, it's usually the most popular rock and roll band in the world. And then you can ask yourself, so you're saying you're the greatest if the most people like you?
Mm.
Now, take a moment to think about what that means. So now you can get into political leaders, you can get into political systems, job attraction. A size 32 gene is the greatest gene ever because most people have that size or whatever. You can take it anywhere and you realize it doesn't quite apply. It means it's the most popular band in the world. The greatest of some sort should be, and I think is, what you identify with the greatest. So you say, I grew up on U2, I grew up on Townes Van Zandt or whatever. You grab onto something that made an enormous impact at a certain time in your life. So it has now become the greatest impact in your life. That's the greatest artist band for you. End of story. You can't compare these impacts with each individual human on the planet. It's impossible. But popularity you can measure, like jumping and throwing, the size and the height. They're all there. You can actually say, yes, they sold 40 million records. They are the most popular. Right on. That doesn't mean they're bad. Doesn't mean it's not good. It just means most people have that taste. They enjoy that. Great. But if you strive for greatness, you have to really understand that you have, as an artist or a musician, you have a specific voice. That's why you're born. You're not born to be like someone else. You're born to be exactly you. That's your gift to the planet. And in history, Niclas is going to be one and never again. So if you think about the opportunity each artist has to go, oh my God, I get one shot. They're going to want to be great. They're going to want to be great. They want to say the right things and play these beautiful, pieces of music. But as soon as you shift it and you say, I want to be the most popular, you're going to forget about who you are because you want to mix yourself with the masses. And that's okay too. But you cannot measure that in greatness. There's no physical, scientific way to do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally, man. I mean, that's very well put. I really, it requires some, thinking. But I really liked it. I mean, I understand what you're saying, and I think most people or most musicians would agree and say, "Yeah, I want to do all that." But then it comes to the question, I guess, of well, how do I make it for a living?
Yeah.
Because I guess there needs to be some balance, right? Or
No, there doesn't have to be a balance. But if
Right.
you want it to be a balance, then absolutely. And that's what I was saying before. I've gone in and out of this. I spent times when it's about the career, popularity. I release a record because the label wants to, or I think it's a good move in my, progression of my career and all this stuff.
Yeah.
But as you get, through these different phases of your, let's not call it career, through your life, you're going to make decisions based on how close you are to your heart. You're either very far away from your heart or you're really close to your own heart. And once you discover that the closer you get to your own spirit and your soul and your heart, your decisions are different. Then you just kind of feel, you feel gratitude for the ability to express yourself, or for a good meal, or for good friends, or if you're married and have kids, like other things become much more valuable. And the music then just becomes part of your everyday living. It's not that important. I think great things can come out of that. I love producing unknown, fairly amateurish artists as well. Not because it's better, but sometimes there's a beautiful innocence about it that I feel is impossible to reproduce once you get to a certain professional level. You can't be that innocent at a certain level. So I like to mix that up.
Right. I mean, this reminds me of what maybe you're familiar with it, Tony Robbins,
Yeah.
the coach guy, whatever.
Yeah. Life coach or something. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I was reading one of his books, and he was talking about striving for fulfillment, and it goes along with what you're saying. Greatness, like striving not for or not to be maybe the most significant person with the most likes, whatever. Because usually people who have only gone for that hasn't always ended up in the most beautiful place. So that's something I've been thinking about lately a lot too.
Yeah. Internally, because you're going to return to you at some point. You'll be on your deathbed, or you'll lose someone that you cared about a lot, or a lot of things that can deeply, deeply change your life will occur. That happens to most of us, pretty much all of us. And in those moments, who will you be then? Okay. So then the question becomes, if you feel like you like a nice speedboat and a penthouse and fame and not be able to move in the public eye, people are always asking for your autographs, you're very popular, you're constantly on TV shows, you're working a lot, you're isolated, you have bodyguard. If you want all those things, you want this absolute unique experience of extreme fame, that's totally attainable. You just have to put all your efforts into that. You just have to really stay focused on it. And you have to be around people that know how to do that. You can't hang around anybody. You have to start choosing your group. But I know that most people I run into, they don't want that. There's a handful of people I know, especially in the music world, they really want that. And they have gotten pretty close, or they've gotten some big success. And I don't know if they're happy or not, but I know for me, if I don't question my motives, I will be unhappy. So I question my motives, and usually I can regulate. And then I also think, if you are a musician of any sort, I think you should record as much as possible, because the only thing that's going to be left behind is how you make people feel. So either be kind, or if you want people to hate you, be really mean. I mean, it's up to you, but make sure that your intentions are according or aligned with what you want. But if you record everything and don't think about a big release, you just record it, put it out. Man, you can be part of so much on this planet for so many years. You can really, I've discovered weird songs, like in the middle of the, internet somewhere. I go in there to the web and I find something and I'm like, oh my God. And all of a sudden I'm in Bulgaria. There's some little kid and you go like, this is amazing. And I have 6 minutes of something amazing in my life, and then I move on. But it changed me. I don't have to go to all their concerts and follow them, but they changed me.
Yeah,
That's
awesome.
But if they never recorded that, I would never have had that experience.
Exactly. I mean, something that made me, trying to find what's my fulfillment, because I get caught up in the whole likes, how many followers you have, blah 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 blah. But something that helped me was just thinking, even if I had all that, I think I would still enjoy what I already have. So that put it in a nice perspective.
I like that a lot.
Yeah,
That's a good sense of gratitude. Yeah.
definitely. And you said you do a lot of meditation and stuff now. What's your routine when it comes to that?
There are variations, but I usually start with breath work, and it can be like Kundalini. It can be, certain Kriya Yoga things, or it can just be the Wim Hof method, which is a more modern, updated version of a lot of the Hindu yogi methods.
Is that the German guy or whatever he is?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And basically, he does the cold plunge and ice baths and all this stuff. But a lot of that is just old knowledge anyway. Then he's kind of just revived it, and it's really good for you. So I start with breath work, either a calming breath thing, or an energizing, or a healing, or empowering. There are different ways you can do the breath work, and you do that for a few minutes, somewhere from 5 to 20 minute different exercises. And then usually, if I do it the right way, and it sets me off, and then I do meditation from 20 to an hour and a half, depending on how much time I have. Some of that meditation is, and I try to do it first thing before I go for my run, and basically it's a practice in just mindfulness, meaning that when the thoughts come, I can either repeat a mantra because I want to just accomplish a certain focus. Usually around here, if you close your eyes and you look here and you can just focus on that, which is an inward. You can have like a Ramana Maharshi method, which is self-inquiry of who am I? Who am I? Who am I? Who am I? Who is asking, who am I? Who am I? And you do this all day, all day. You never stop. Who is talking to Niclas right now? Who is listening to Niclas? Who is perceiving? Who am I? Who am I? And you go into it. And supposedly that can bring you to true enlightenment, meaning that you reach your Atman, and your Atman is your true, original, authentic self. That's the creator of you. That's your soul. That's your intention of energy that produces this form that you are. So that's one way. Another one is that I drift off and I go up in the sky, I go to cloud and I find a certain place, and then I recreate scenarios there, go into a house, I meet a person, there's a lion, then I can create that. I can watch the thoughts, I let everything come in, it comes in, and I let it go. And the thought, and I let it go. Focus on breathing. So you can see there are endless ways but it's all basically just practicing mindfulness. So when my emotions in my daily life run away with me, my ego starts to think and feel shit, I have now practiced, like worked out my muscles, so I control my mind and I go, whoa, whoa, whoa. And maybe I cry over something that breaks my heart, but then I can go, okay, that's enough. That's enough. You don't have to act that. You got it. Because if you identify with all your emotions all the time, you're being tossed left and right between anger and resentment and sadness and joy. And so you lose your center, which is a eternal blissful entity of energy. It's all we are. We're just really strong and happy.
Exactly. I mean, I've done it on and off for 10 plus years, and
Yeah.
I've recently started getting into it again, which again is exactly what you say. If I don't do it, I also go, I get pulled a different direction by myself, like you said, there's stress, there's whatever, and then you're too evolved in yourself somehow. So it's very nice to be able to just watch it and then it goes away.
Yeah, and it takes practice. You
Yeah,
can't
yeah,
just make the switch. People ask me, how I can't meditate. I go, I don't think anybody just can. You have to practice. It's like a muscle. You have to practice your. Now, if you want enlightenment and be a swami, that's a whole different thing. You have to give up everything. I mean, those are different things. But you can reach a really beautiful state of gratitude and compassion. It's wonderful.
definitely. And then you spoke about running. What's the? How long do you run? Do you run every day or?
I like to run every day, but as an old addict, I get addicted to the dopamine of that. But
Yeah.
I should rest 1 or 2 days a week, but I rarely do. But I run probably 3.4 to 4 miles
Right.
a day, and that's you live in London, so like
I'm
miles.
pretty bad at miles. What's that in kilometers? Double? ish.
I have to look that up. Hold on.
I guess it's close to 10 at least.
Yeah, wait 1 second. We'll get it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So what is so point six is
Right.
1 mile is 0.6 kilometers, right? Am I right?
I think so,
So
yeah.
4 times point 0.6, 2.5 European miles, like metric miles.
Right.
No, kilometers.
Kilometers,
Does
yeah.
that make sense? Or is it 1.6?
But I think yeah, no, it's definitely 1.6, so it should be more. Yeah.
Here we go. 4 times 1.6. There we go. 6.4
Yeah,
kilometers.
makes
So it's
sense.
about 6 kilometers is
Mhm.
kind of what I run. Does that like a 5K?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
That
Nice.
sounds about right. 45 minutes, right?
Yeah, definitely. And when did you start doing that? Was it have you done it for several years or
Yeah, I've done it for a very long time. But again, everything changed 12 years ago when I got sober,
right?
and a lot of new habits and also some old habits came back. And when meditation's one, running, I used to love running when I was younger. And um, yeah, I think 10 years ago, maybe I started pretty actively run again. And then it goes up and down, but the last 3 years,
Hmm. Nice.
probably all the time. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I started doing it when lockdown happened. Actually, that was one of my goals to do a 10K, and I
Oh,
managed to
wow.
do it. So that was good. But running has been, and I guess you must know this because you've done it for so long now. But running actually, because when you run, right, there's this moment where you just want to stop because it's just too painful, or I
Yeah.
feel that at least. And
Yeah. Yeah.
but when you just continue anyway, past that, I feel
Yeah.
like that teaches you a lot, in everyday life.
Yeah. And then when the lightness sets in, when you get the runner's high,
Mm.
that's insanely good. You're just like, oh my God, I could run forever. But yeah,
Exactly.
no, I mean, running is hard on your body, but I think
Mm.
it's okay. You don't have to train for a marathon or an Olympics. That's hard, but I think some good hard sweating. Do you ever play basketball? I never do, but I've tried a few times. Oh my God, it's exhausting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Basketball, these guys are in great shape.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Well, Anders, it's been awesome talking to you. Maybe before we wrap up, you can. Do you have any new music coming out, or any? Is it more shows on Facebook, or yeah? What's coming up?
I
In
do
your
live
world?
streams every other Friday on Facebook, and so that will be this Friday coming up. I do one by myself. I've had a bunch of guests, but this time it's called just us. It's me and my wife. We sit in this room right here,
Cool.
and I have a few new records. There's a bootleg coming out, and then I have a new studio record in the can that we're just waiting for maybe next year, hoping that there's a little bit of touring that I can do to promote it. And then I'm going to cut a new solo record in 4 weeks. So I'm going to the studio,
Cool.
and yep.
Is that in New Orleans or around that
I'm
area?
going to go to Lafayette. There's a friend of mine. I've been going since '93. This beautiful place called Dockside Studios. It's in Maurice, right outside Lafayette, Louisiana.
Oh, okay, cool. Nice. And that's coming out next year, you said, or
Yeah, I
later.
think the studio record with the band's coming out the
Right.
next
Right.
few months. But the solo record, yes, shortly after that, I guess.
Cool, man. Well, Anders, big pleasure. It was really nice talking to you, and
You too.
the,
Very
the
pleasant.
the the first Swede to coming onto the show as well.
I love it. It was great to meet a fellow Swede.
Thank you, Anders. It was great talking to you, and hope you, the listener, enjoy this as well. Again, please subscribe to the channel, whether that's on YouTube, Apple Podcast, Spotify. It really helps grow the channel and get more guests on so we can do more awesome content for you. Also, if you want exclusive access to interviews before the public and a chance to ask up and coming guest questions, check out the Audio Tribe. There's a link to that below. completely free to join. Just enter your name and email address, and you have joined the Audio Tribe email list. But that's it for this week. Also, don't forget to check out Andres's music. Is great, and if you're into great songwriting, blues, rock, jazz, you'll love his music too. But that's it for this week. Great to have you here as always, and I will see you again next week. So take care.